Okay, so for this deep dive, we're stepping into a world that is, it's just completely different.
Oh, complete.
It's a world where negotiation isn't about, logic games or who gets the bigger piece of the pie.
It's about survival. It's
Hmm.
about dealing with raw, unpredictable human emotion under the highest possible pressure.
Exactly. And our source material today is just extraordinary. It's this unexpected, counterintuitive toolkit from the FBI's lead hostage negotiation unit.
And this stuff is a complete reversal of everything traditional, rational academia taught about how to get what you want.
Right.
We're talking about emotional intelligence on steroids,
Mhm.
the kind of psychological mastery that saves lives in a barricade situation.
And as you're about to find out, the exact same techniques that can completely revolutionize a salary negotiation, a business deal, pretty much any human interaction.
Anything where influence is required, really.
Absolutely. And to show you just how revolutionary this all is, we have to start at the moment this street smart psychology went head to head with the ivory tower of rational thought,
The Harvard trap.
the Harvard trap.
So picture this. It's the late 1990s. Chris Voss, who would go on to become the FBI's chief international kidnapping negotiator. At the time, he just describes himself as a street cop.
Uh-huh.
And he's enrolled in this very exclusive executive negotiating course at Harvard Law School. I mean, this is the absolute epicenter of rational negotiation theory. He's there to learn their way.
The structured, logical business school way.
Exactly. And he gets thrown, totally unexpectedly, into this high-stakes role play against two of the school's heavyweights. We're talking tenured professors who literally wrote the book on this stuff,
And the whole class is watching.
the whole room.
Yeah.
And the scenario is just designed for maximum emotional impact. It's meant to make you fail, to force you to rely on pure, cold logic.
And that's when one of the professors, one of the foremost minds in negotiation, he just leans back, smiles, and delivers this ultimate gut punch.
Even though it's just a role play.
Right. He says, "We've got your son, Voss. Give us $1 million or he dies."
And Voss writes about this immediate paralyzing flash of panic that hits him, even after 20 years of dealing with actual sociopaths. The professor had just so brilliantly tapped into that raw, emotional, System 1 part of the brain.
The Harvard playbook was clear, right? Their whole strategy, the one from getting to, yes, it's all about rational problem solving.
They're waiting for him to separate the person from the problem, to start generating, win-win options.
Okay, how about 500,000? What if I give you collateral? That kind of thing. They wanted logic, positions, interests.
But Voss, the FBI agent, he sidesteps the entire conflict. He uses this one single, deceptively simple move.
And it's not based on calculation. It's based on redirecting emotion.
He doesn't argue, he doesn't debate the price. He just shifts the focus to logistics. He makes the kidnapper solve his problem
His response was just perfect, was calm, it was measured.
and completely focus on his own inability to do what they asked. He says, I really am sorry, but how can I get you any money right now, much less $1 million, if I don't even know he's alive?
And you can just imagine the scene. The source material paints this beautiful picture of just intellectual shock.
These brilliant, rational men were completely flustered. What he said must have sounded like unsophisticated street talk to them. They were left just fumbling for an answer.
Because they were suddenly constrained. They thought they had all the leverage, the demand, the threat, but that one simple question completely boxed them in.
And that one moment, that really encapsulates our whole mission for this deep dive.
It wasn't a threat. It was a calibrated question. It bought him time. It gave the illusion of control to his counterpart.
But crucially, it kept Voss in control of the conversation's frame. He realized right then that his methods, born from fighting terrorists, they didn't just work in a crisis, they worked everywhere.
And that is what this is all about, the power of emotional discovery over cold, rational argument.
So if this psychological approach was so effective, why did it take the FBI until, the 90s to really formalize it?
To get that, you really have to look at the history. There was this dark era of just critical failures that forced a complete paradigm shift away from brute force and toward empathy.
Historically so, before the 1970s, law enforcement's approach to any kind of standoff was pretty much brute force.
Right. Negotiation was just a stalling tactic.
Exactly. You talk until you can get a tactical team in place. The priority was speed and dominance, not communication.
And this led to some just catastrophic failures. I mean, you start with the big prison riots like Attica in 1971.
That standoff dragged on, and the final decision was to send in the state police.
And the result was just heartbreaking. 39 hostages were killed during that police intervention.
A year later, you had the 1972 Munich Olympics. That showed the entire world that force was often counterproductive, especially with international stakes.
The botched rescue attempt. Just a tragedy. It resulted in the deaths of all 11 Israeli athletes and coaches. The focus on a tactical fix led directly to failure.
But the real institutional change, the mandate to negotiate in American law enforcement, that really came after the George Gift Jr. hijacking in Jacksonville.
Also in 71, Jif hijacked a plane. He's demanding money, a flight to Cuba.
And the FBI agents on the ground, they just got impatient. Instead of waiting, they tried to disable the plane by shooting out an engine.
And that reckless escalation just led straight to violence. 3 people died, 2 of them hostages.
The courts put the blame squarely on the FBI's failure to negotiate properly. This led to the landmark 1975 ruling, Downs v. United States.
And this ruling redefined everything. The court basically concluded, and I'm paraphrasing here, that a reasonable attempt at negotiation must be made before a tactical intervention.
So negotiation was no longer optional. It became a mandatory prerequisite to using force.
Yeah.
And that created this immediate need for a real science of crisis negotiation.
Okay, so fast forward to the late 70s, early 80s. The intellectual framework for how to negotiate comes from Cambridge, the Harvard Negotiation Project.
And their ideas get codified in that legendary book, Getting to Yes.
And their approach seemed foolproof for business, right? Separate the person from the problem, focus on interests, not positions.
Generate win-win options, establish objective standards. It was brilliant, it was rational, and it seemed like it would work for everything.
And for a while, the FBI actually adopted that framework.
But then you have these huge crisis situations, the high-profile sieges like Ruby Ridge and Waco in the early 90s, and those forced a very painful, very immediate emotional reality check.
Why?
Because they showed that most hostage situations are not rational problem-solving scenarios. You just can't negotiate a mutually beneficial win-win outcome with an emotionally volatile person who thinks he's fighting the apocalypse.
There's no common interest to focus on.
None. And FBI research confirmed this total disconnect. They surveyed veteran negotiators, and almost none of them had ever dealt with the classic bargaining situation that Harvard's model was built for.
The calm, cool exchange of interests.
Right. But when they asked how many had negotiated incidents in dynamic, intensely uncertain environments where the subject was in a deep emotional crisis with no clear demands, every single hand went up.
So this is where the core psychological conflict comes in, the science behind the FBI's new approach. We're talking about the work of Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky on cognitive bias.
And there are 2 systems of thought.
We all have 2 operating systems, basically. System 2 is the slow, deliberate, logical mind. That's the one the Harvard professors were talking to. It does math, it weighs evidence.
But system 1 is the animal mind. It's fast, instinctive, automatic, and intensely emotional. It processes threats, fear, immediate reactions.
And here is the crucial insight that the FBI leveraged. System 1 is way more influential. It's the gatekeeper.
The emotional reaction always comes first. And then the rational mind, system 2, constructs a belief or a choice to justify that feeling.
So if you want to change someone's choice, you have to get to their system 1 emotional mind first.
Exactly. The FBI realized that negotiating without first addressing the emotional core, the heart, was just impossible. Our brains are hardwired to react to emotion before they even start to process data.
So while the Ivy League was teaching calculus, the FBI started intensely training its agents in psychology, counseling, and applied empathy.
They had to learn to speak to System 1 before they could ever hope to reach System 2.
That philosophical shift is fascinating, but how do you actually do that? How do you engage a System 1 brain when it's in the middle of a crisis, in full fight-or-flight mode?
Well, that's the brilliance of this toolkit. The first steps happen entirely at the level of your delivery, your communication, even over a phone. And we can trace these foundational techniques back to one really chaotic moment.
The Brooklyn bank robbery, September 30th, 1993.
The scene was incredibly tense. You had 2 masked robbers who had pistol-whipped a security guard. One of them actually pulled the trigger on a teller.
Luckily, the chamber was empty.
Right, but the intent was crystal clear. And the initial police approach was just rushing. It was aggressive, it was kinetic.
And rushing is the cardinal sin in any negotiation like this.
They were trying to be problem solvers, trying to get a quick tactical solution. But if you go too fast, the other person feels unheard, trust just gets undermined, and rapport collapses.
The FBI realized this profound counterintuitive truth. Time is your absolute best friend in a crisis.
If they're talking, they're not shooting. The goal is to maximize dialogue and minimize action.
So after 5 hours of stalemate, 5 hours of failed aggressive tactics by the local police, Voss gets put on the phone.
And this is where he debuts the most powerful delivery technique in the entire toolkit, the late-night FM DJ voice.
You know that voice. It's deep, it's soft, slow, and just. Profoundly reassuring.
It signals calm and control directly to that emotional system one brain. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
And the key is using a downward inflecting statement. That conveys absolute certainty. It signals, I'm in control and everything is fine.
Because if you end your sentences with an upward inflection, you make a statement sound like a question. You're signaling uncertainty, and that invites the other person, the emotional one, to take the lead.
So Voss used that DJ voice with the robber, Chris Voss. He just said, Joe's gone, this is Chris, you're talking to me now.
It was a quiet, self-assured declaration, not a question. And that calm, steady pace was the key to easing the whole confrontation.
So once the delivery was right, the information started flowing. And that was thanks to the second critical technique.
Mirroring.
The FBI calls it isopraxism, which is basically just essential imitation.
Mirroring is the real psychological deep cut here. It uses a very basic biological principle. We fear what's different, and we're unconsciously drawn to what's similar.
So mirroring is the art of subtly insinuating that similarity. You build rapport and trust, and the other person doesn't even realize you're doing it.
And in the FBI's context, a mirror is almost laughably simple, which is what makes it so powerful.
You just repeat the last 1 to 3 critical words the other person has just said.
That's it. And it forces them to elaborate. It keeps the conversation going without you having to ask an aggressive or challenging question. It just feels like an invitation to say more.
And this is exactly what unlocked the Brooklyn bank robbery. Voss is talking to Watts, the robber, and he mentions they've identified all the getaway cars except for one.
Watts gets a little rattled and blurts out, "The other vehicle's not out there because you guys chased my driver away."
So Voss doesn't analyze that, he doesn't process it, he just mirrors the last critical phrase, he says.
"We chased your driver away."
And Watts immediately feels compelled to explain himself, to fill that silence. He clarifies his earlier admission. The FBI calls it vomiting information.
Right. And he reveals he has an accomplice. He gives these crucial clues about a getaway driver the FBI didn't even know existed. That simple, non-judgmental repetition just opened the floodgates.
This works everywhere. There's that study with the waiters in a restaurant.
Oh, yeah. The waiters who simply mirrored their customers' orders, just repeating, so that's a sirloin, medium rare. They got 70% higher tips than the ones who used positive reinforcement like great or got it.
Because mirroring signals, I am hearing you completely, which is one of the most fundamental human needs.
So, to be clear, it's not about agreeing with them.
Not at all. It's about validating that their words were received. It's a communication Swiss Army knife. It just reduces defensiveness and increases dialogue.
So building on that foundation of delivery and imitation, the next critical step is moving from just simple reception to active cognitive engagement.
And this is where we get to tactical empathy.
This is where the FBI completely diverges from that old Harvard model that told you to ignore emotion or separate it from the problem.
The FBI realized you have to walk right into it.
Tactical empathy is so crucial because it is not about being nice, it's not about being sympathetic or agreeing with the bad guy. It's defined as the ability to recognize the perspective of a counterpart and the vocalization of that recognition.
So it's about articulating that you understand why their actions make perfect sense to them.
Even if they're crazy or criminal or dangerous, it's the realization that emotions aren't obstacles to be ignored. They are the actual means to influence.
If you know how the other person is feeling, you know where the leverage is.
And to show the sheer power of this, let's look at the Harlem standoff in 1998. You've got 3 heavily armed fugitives cornered, holed up in a high-rise apartment.
Voss and his team are the negotiators. SWAT is positioned outside. The situation is a complete stalemate.
And for 6 straight hours, the FBI team gets 0 response. Nothing to their phone calls, nothing to their loudspeaker hails.
6 hours of just absolute terrifying silence.
Most negotiators would panic. They'd escalate. Voss's team, though, they stayed relentlessly on message. They used the late-night DJ voice, and they employed a technique called labeling.
Which means they verbalized the fugitives' predictable negative emotions and fears right into the void.
They said things like, "It looks like you don't want to come out." It seems like you worry that if you open the door, we'll come in with guns blazing.
It looks like you don't want to go back to jail. It sounds like you feel you have no options left.
I mean, think about the psychological audacity of that.
Yeah.
They didn't just put themselves in the fugitive's shoes. They spotted their feelings, turned them into rational, calm words, and then just calmly repeated those words back to them.
It exposes those negative thoughts to daylight. It makes them seem less frightening, more manageable.
And this is completely validated by neuroscience. There was a UCLA brain imaging study that showed when you ask people to label an emotion, to put a rational word like sad or angry, to a raw feeling.
Activity instantly shifts away from the fear-generating amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain.
So applying rational words to a raw fear literally disrupts its intensity. By labeling the fugitive's fear of being shot, the FBI forced them, however slowly, to start processing those feelings rationally.
So what happened after 6 hours of this relentless tactical labeling?
A sniper finally saw a curtain move. It confirmed someone was there. And eventually, the fugitives surrendered peacefully. They were finally ready to talk.
The delivery of a label is key, right? They almost always start with, "it seems like," or "it sounds like."
Right, it looks like.
Yeah.
You have to avoid using, like, I'm hearing that because I signals that you're more interested in your feelings, which just puts their guard right back up.
And labeling is incredibly versatile. You can use it to reinforce positive feelings or, more often, to diffuse negative ones.
In fact, the fastest way to build a working relationship is to fearlessly and deferentially acknowledge the negative dynamic right up front.
Which brings us to the highest expression of this, the accusation audit.
This is where you leverage the power of labeling by disarming all the fear and hostility before it can even be aimed at you.
The idea is just stunningly counterintuitive. You list every single terrible negative thing your counterpart could possibly say about you, all their fears, their grievances, their accusations, and you say them first.
I mean, think about it. What's the worst thing they could say? You are greedy. You're trying to push us out. You lead the conversation by